Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the Amber Valley series. There are 35 parishes in this beautiful slice of eastern Derbyshire. Here's one for your viewing pleasure. Welcome back to Amber Valley, everybody. Today we're in a village that's famed for a cricketer, and we'll find out what his name is pretty quickly because it's all over this place. There are plenty of things that make reference to him. This is the parish of Kirk Langley. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like, and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. This week in Amber Valley, we're taking on Kirk Langley, a village which sits on the A52 some 4 miles northwest of Derby. As well as the main village, Kirk Langley Parish includes several other settlements including Langley Green, Langley Common and Meynell Langley. The area is often simply known as Langley, a collective term which encompasses all of the settlements in one go. Kirk Langley village is pretty small. It's based primarily around 2 roads, although there's been a fair amount of infilling both on and around them. In the 1940s, a small council estate was built here, and more recently brand new houses have been constructed along the A52. Both Langley Green and Langley Common are generally residential as well. Meynell Langley takes its name from the Meynell family, landowners in the area since the 12th century. As well as the Meynells, the Poole family, who are heavily associated with nearby Radbourne, also held land here too. If we're talking names though, by far and away the one that you cannot escape out here is Barrington. George, or G.B. Barrington if you will, was a cricketer who died in Kirk Langley in 1942. The man is remembered around the village in several ways, but most notably by way of the playing field, given in his memory by his daughter. Historic buildings here include the church and the village hall, the latter of which used to be a school. Let's go and see it all. We begin at Flagshaw Pastures, a brand new area of housing being developed at Kirk Langley's eastern end. These are highly sought after and ideally placed for commuters, being a short drive away from Derby. The village is predominantly linear, based as it is along the A52. A lot of the oldest properties are along this very road. The name George, or G.B. Barrington, will crop up a few times around here. Here's Barrington Close off the A52. As well as the A52, Kirk Langley's other main street is Church Lane, both of which have some big, grand houses. A lot are built of brick and feature Staffordshire blue tile roofs. Most are detached or grouped into short terraces. It's been a while since we saw the A52. This stretch of it links Derby with Ashbourne. Brailsford is 2 miles to the west. Here's the corner of Moor Lane, where there's a small green with a feature or two upon it. So right in the centre of the village you've got this little green area. We're going to explore this later because my route comes back along the A52 later, so I'll catch all this on the way back to the car. There is one thing that I do want to talk about right now though, and that's this stone This is a millennium stone. It was put here in 2000 to commemorate the start of the third millennium, and it also is going to double as today's village thumbnail, effectively, the thing you saw right at the beginning. Now, this is on the end of the Cunnery, a street called the Cunnery. Here we go, that's the Cunnery. We're going to go down there in a second to go to the playing field. Before we do though, I just want to nip down here and catch the school, which is on the left hand side. On Moor Lane is Kirk Langley's Church of England Primary School. Built in 1879, it caters for about 90 children. The original village school was the current village hall, which dates back to 1752. We'll see that later. Also on Moor Lane is an old forge, a former blacksmith shop, which dates back to the 19th century. In the late 1940s, a small council estate was built close to the A52. It's known as the Cunnery. Cunnery is an ancient field name meaning rabbit warren. This is where a mobile library stops once every month. You can also access the playing field from here, which is named after that man, George or G.B. Barrington. Born in London in 1857, Barrington played 25 first-class cricket matches for Derbyshire between 1880 and 1887. He died in Kirk Langley in 1942. 10 years later, this field was given in his memory by his daughter, Miss D.D.B. Barrington. You'll find Kirk Langley Playground in here, which was built in 2007 with funds raised by the local community. Originally, this was the school sports field. The current schools still use it, as well as the local cricket club. So of course it's a little bit difficult to film an area where there's children. I've always had that problem. I think I'm safe here though, because I'm far enough away from them that it's obvious I'm not here to do anything sinister. But yeah, that's the playing field, as you can see. And it's good to see it's being used actually, because quite a few playing fields, they don't get used as much as they should, really, I don't think. So yeah, it's good to see the school making use of this one here, the G.B. Barrington Field here in Kirk Langley. Now, Kirk, of course, is an old Scottish word that means church, and that's why it's called Kirk Langley, because there's a church here. And there it is. And that's next. The Church of St Michael was built in the early 14th century on the site of a probable Saxon building. It has a perpendicular tower, and its 14th century chancel screen is reputedly the oldest of its type in Derbyshire. Grade 1 listed, it was restored in 1839 and again in 1885 by George Frederick Bodley and Thomas Garner. Its choir stalls date from 1914 and were designed by Bodley. They were made by Robert Bridgman of Lichfield. This tablet on the wall is for George Hodgkinson. Inside are monuments to both the Meynell and the Poole families. These include a large marble altar tomb commemorating politician Henry Poole, who died in 1559. Here's the village hall, formerly the Leek Memorial Hall. It's owned by the church and is a vital community asset. Okay, so we're out of the churchyard and we're onto Church Lane. Now, there's not really much left, to be honest with you. There's basically Church Lane and the A52 straight back to the car where we began. There's plenty, though, of big, tall, grand buildings still to see. There's one behind me, away to my left, and there's one behind the camera which you can't see, but I will capture them both. Church Lane is far more rural character-wise. This is Langley House Farm, one of a number of detached high-status dwellings. Its farm buildings define the edge of the village's conservation area. Powder coating company Langley Coatings are based right here. Heading back the other way now, we pass the lit gate of the church as we make our way back to Ashbourne Road. Church Lane's old stone walls and mature gardens disguise quite a few modern houses behind them, like this one. To the north of Church Lane, the conservation area includes other isolated farms on either side of the A52. This is Meynell House, arguably Kirk Langley's standout property. It's a 3-storey house with a Tuscan porch. It used to be a pub called the Meynell Arms Hotel before becoming a wine shop owned by Worth Brothers. Heading back east now, Meynell Court is next door, its big double-doored archway suggestive of a former stable block. There used to be a shop on the end of this terraced row. Known as Town End Shop, it was still going in the 1940s. Okay, so the walk down the A52 has brought us to the green area where we were earlier. We're going to explore that in a moment. First, we've got a bus stop. There we go. Ashbourne Road and Flagshaw Lane. And the bus that stops here is apparently the Swift. And there's the timetable with a little wooden shelter. Right, let's hop over the road. I'm sorry it's quite noisy, but being on the A52, Kirk Langley does get a bit busy at times. So we're going to head across the road to the green when we can safely cross. You can already see there's a phone box over there. So we're going to go and explore that. I think it's a book exchange. We've got a defib machine behind it. All mod cons here in Kirk Langley. It is indeed a book exchange. We'll just have a quick look inside. There we go. Officially goes by the name of the Bring and Borrow Library, according to that sign there. Nice little selection in there. Okay, so let's go on to the green. There's a parish notice board here, so I'll do the honours while I'm stood here. May as well. Kirk Langley will be then in the books. Another one down in Amber Valley. It's got a pin. It's a pin board. I love those. There we go. We're done. And let's have a look what else we've got here. We already know about the stone. There's a post box here as well. It's an Elizabethan one. The only other two other things I noticed earlier, one was this bench next to the stone. That's for the Women's Institute centenary in 2019. And then over here there's a little plaque, which again is to do with the Women's Institute. Bulbs were planted here to commemorate the Golden Jubilee, 1919 to 1969. And there you go, that's the little green area. So really from here it's just a simple case of walking back to the car along the A52, and that has been Kirk Langley. However, I'm not done with this one yet, because Kirk Langley, as well as the main village itself, there are a couple of settlements around the village which I need to catch in the car. I've got to be honest here, Langley Green and Langley Common weren't all that interesting as settlements go. There's not a lot out there about either, but there is, however, loads about Meynell Langley. We'll cover that shortly, but before we do, enjoy this little drive around the other two, which ends up at the Bluebell Inn. And here we are at the Bluebell Inn, a warm and welcoming, delightful country pub with a state-of-the-art kitchen and cellar. It's the only pub in the entire parish. To the north of Kirk Langley is Meynell Langley, the ancestral home of the Meynell family. It's a small hamlet which is based primarily around Meynell Langley Hall. The hall that stands today is not the original, as its medieval predecessor was demolished centuries ago. It remains, though, Meynell owned. It's currently the private home of Godfrey and Helen Meynell and their daughters. Although private, you can access the hall if you're wanting to get married there. Meynell Langley Hall has a wedding licence. And you'll have to take my word for this, if you do visit, you're in for a treat. Meynell Langley Hall has one of the finest parklands in the entire country. In 2015, the Meynells placed a version of Grotto in the Gulf of Salerno by Derby painter Joseph Wright in an auction at Sotheby's. It was one of the paintings that was kept at Meynell Langley Hall. It had been in the family since 1840. The money raised from its sale was donated to assist Syrian refugees in Greece. And that's it for Kirk Langley, everyone. I do hope you've enjoyed this one. Next week we're taking on another village on the A52 and one that can boast a castle. It's also got a couple of pubs, a church which has seen better days, and a major commercial vehicle retailer too. Join me for all of that and more next week. Bye for now. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.